I think everyone's on, so I'm going to go ahead and call this March 15th, 2021 meeting of the Whitefish City Council. Thanks everyone for joining us this evening remotely. I appreciate you taking the time. And I will start us with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our next item on the agenda is our communications from the public. And I'm going to ask Michelle Hauk to see if anyone's called in this evening to provide public comment to the council. Just for the record, your name and address, please, when you address the city council. Michelle.
Okay, thanks. So at this time, if you do wish to speak towards the council, please on the right hand, lower left or lower right corner, click your participants tab. Hover over your name and right click the hand that pops up. You can also *3 on your phone pad or the 3 dots to the left of the red X at the bottom. If you're unable to do any of those, please use your chat option to the lower right hand corner. Send me a chat by typing your question and hitting enter and it'll come over. Right now we do have Mr. Canova who would like to speak. If you'd like to unmute your mic and state your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is James Canova, and I live at 12 Dakota Avenue here in Whitefish. Yeah, I wanted to address everyone. I'm the author of the letter that is included in today's agenda under the heading Communication from the Mayor and City Councilors. The letter that I wrote and the associated materials refer to a $480 bill that I received from the City of Whitefish for a first and only offense for not shoveling snow off the sidewalk in front of my home. The letter explains the situation in detail. We were out of town and didn't get the single warning letter that was placed in our mailbox. As a result, the city hired a private company to clear our sidewalks. Fredericks of Whitefish charged us $75 an hour for the removal and said it took 4 hours to remove the snow from our sidewalk. They also added miscellaneous charges like 5 bags of $25 bag ice melt. Additionally, we had an $80 administrative charge from the City of Whitefish. I want all of us at today's meeting to understand that we live in a town where a single resident can be charged $480 for a first and only sidewalk shoveling offense. We're all striving to keep Whitefish an affordable and community-oriented town. And the $480 bill that I received, I feel is a draconian punishment, and I hope changes can be made so that no other Whitefish residents are sent a similarly sized bill. It looks to me like the city code was followed as it currently stands. That being said, I make some suggestions in my letter that I think could get us closer to something that actually resembles best practices and fair practices. I feel strongly about this subject, and I acknowledge that there are more important and more urgent things going on in our town. That being said, if any of you have ideas on how to improve this situation for myself and our Whitefish neighbors, I would like to hear from you. Thank you for your time, and I hope one or more of you can help me make this situation better for all of us.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
I don't see anybody else who wishes to speak, John.
Okay, I'll stay with those that called in. Are there any volunteer board reports from members of the public tonight? Not seeing any, Michelle. I'll turn it back to the council. Any volunteer board reports from council members? Not seeing any once again. We do have the consent agenda included in the packet. You have enclosed the March 1st, 2021 regular
John?
session.
Excuse
Yes?
me, Nate. I don't know why you can't see me because I could. Oh, there you are. Okay.
I can see you.
I have a, here I am, a tree committee report.
Okay.
Okay. So we met last Thursday to look at the, review the State Park Road revisions. And there was a citizen that came because he wanted to cut down trees on another person's property that the city has an easement on. So what we recommended was that that person hire a landscape architect to see about bank stabilization and if there's other types of landscaping things that could happen. And I think that's something that the public needs to know is that you can't really just go and cut down other people's trees, and you can't cut down trees on city property either. But if you have problems, like this was only for improving a view onto the lake, then we might be able to work with you on private public partnership things. The other thing that came up was I was wondering if how we put roads onto our resort checks list, because it's pretty steep on that side of the road, and so I think the staff is dealing with that though. I just wanted people out there to know, do not cut down other people's trees, and you can't cut them down on the public property either, but approach us. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm very familiar with the situation you're referring to, so I appreciate your comments and the reminder to the public regarding not interfering with city boulevard trees within the right of way. So thanks very much. Further volunteer board reports from the council.
Yeah, I've got one, John.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, maybe I'll give you guys a quick post from the Housing Steering Committee in reference to the accessory dwelling units that we discussed at the work session at the last council meeting. The steering committee did discuss this further and did ask staff to do some research into what deed restrictions would look like if used for accessory dwelling units, specifically if there were other municipalities that we could evaluate if they had a successful program that used deed restrictions to try to make sure we're achieving our housing goals by expanding the use of the accessory dwelling units. So I think there will be some more time involved as we look at this, and we will come back to the council. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. Further board reports from the council. Not seeing any. I'll move on to item 5 of the agenda, which is our consent agenda, and close the minutes from the March 1st, 2021 regular session. Any corrections to the minutes, or can I have a motion for approval, please?
I would like to say no corrections to the minutes, but I did have some questions for staff about one of the consent agenda items on the 93 LLC project before we go ahead and approve that.
So I think you would, to formally discuss that under the consent agenda, Rebecca, just you can go ahead and motion to remove item 5C from the agenda for discussion. And that I don't believe requires a second.
Okay, I move to remove item C from the agenda. But do we put it back later then?
You can actually, it's your, let's go ahead and have, get your concerns out on the table or your question, and let's take care of this right now.
Okay, I just, there was some controversial parts of it when it came through the first time. So I was wondering where we were with the Park Knoll Road. Was that resolved? Because the Park Knoll neighborhood owned the road that went out to the highway. And then there was, I just never knew if they had sold that or opened up access. The second thing I wanted to know was...
I think you might be thinking about Whitefish 57, Rebecca.
Right.
Oh, wait. Is this
It's
a different project?
Yeah,
Okay.
This is on 93 West, kind of right across from State Park Road.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I'm thinking of a whole different project. That's embarrassing. Thank you, Craig. Nope, I don't have
Happy to
any
clarify.
questions. Yeah.
Don't be embarrassed. It's a lot to keep track of, Rebecca. With that
Well,
said, With no changes to the minutes from March 1st, can I have a motion, please, for the consent agenda?
Move to
Motion
approve the
to
consent
approve.
agenda.
And is that a second, Rebecca?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Michelle, roll call, please.
Counselor Quinn,
Aye.
Counselor Sweeney,
In favor.
Counselor Davis,
In favor.
Counselor Hennon,
In favor.
Counselor Fury,
In favor.
Counselor Norton.
In favor.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And that motion is unanimous, which brings us on to our one public hearing this evening, which will be ordinance 21-3, an emergency ordinance providing for continued remote meetings of the Whitefish City Council, city boards and committees, and waiving a second reading. Again, this will be the only reading on this ordinance. And Dana, I believe you're presenting tonight.
Thank you. Mayor Mulfeld, good evening, City Council. This evening, you have in front of you a draft ordinance for your consideration. City Attorney Jacobs' staff report is in your packet on page 51. She could not join us this evening, so I am going to hopefully run through this without too much angst. Currently, we're operating under a remote meeting format for both city council meetings as well as committee meetings that choose to be remote. This ordinance would extend that past for another additional 90 days. Our current emergency ordinance is set to expire on the 21st of this month. While cases are going down in Flathead County and in general across the state, the vaccine has yet to be available to essential workers, which many of your government employees apply as. And so what we discussed at a prior city council meeting was to continue this ordinance or to bring it forward for your consideration this evening. And do know that at any point you could repeal this ordinance and go back to in-person meetings. Should that be the case in 90 days, it will expire. So with that said, the operating under this ordinance would be identical to how we are now. So staff respectfully recommends that the City Council approve the proposed emergency ordinance.
Thanks very much, Dana. Any comments or questions for Dana on Angie's staff report from the council? Councilor Quinnell.
Just a quick question. We could end it sooner than 90 days if we chose to, correct?
You could, yes, you could come back with a.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the council? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on ordinance 21-3, an emergency ordinance providing for continued remote meetings of the Whitefish City Council, city boards and committees. This will waive a second reading and we'll hold that public hearing now. Michelle, can you please check to see if we have anyone who would like to provide comment, and for the record, your name and address, please.
Okay, I did leave instructions in the chat box. Please hover over your name in the participants page list. Right-click the hand icon and it will raise or *3 on your phone, or the 3 digits, 3 dots to the left of the X. I'll give you just a few moments to do so. You can also leave a chat to me in the box. John, I don't see anything.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to the council for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we approve ordinance 21-03, an emergency ordinance providing for continued remote meetings of the city council, city boards and committees, waiving a second reading. This will be the only reading.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
I heard Frank. Frank is the second to the motion. I don't know who else spoke up, but I heard Frank first. Anyway, further discussion or comments on the motion? Michelle, roll
Mr.
call,
Mayor.
please. Go ahead,
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor, if I might, I think the public, I would like the public to know, in any case, that since there was nobody here to provide input, our purpose for doing this is to protect our employees in the interim. Given what we know of the science and the state of the rollout of vaccines, I think we will be in a position at the end of this 90 days to resume if not before, resume our in-person meetings, which is what we would all prefer. And I think I would like the public to think about this in terms of this is a way for us to return safely to in-person meetings more than anything else. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Frank. Further comments from the council? Michelle, roll call, please.
Counselor Quinnell,
Aye.
Counselor Sweeney,
In favor?
Counselor Davis,
In favor.
Counselor Hennon,
In favor.
Counselor Fury,
In favor.
and Counselor Norton.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. And that motion is unanimous. And that brings us on to item 7 of our agenda, which is communications from Chief Page. You have item 7A enclosed in your packet, which is a consideration to award the fire department master consultant contract to AP Triton, the master plan. Chief Page, thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. You have my staff report included in your packet. As you remember, the fire department is seeking to have a master plan study done. And at a previous meeting, you selected the mayor, Dana, and myself to serve as the selection committee. We received 3 bids for this proposal, 3 list of qualifications for this study. We decided to go ahead and interview 2 different firms, both AP Triton and Matrix Consultant. And after our interviews and some due diligence, we unanimously chose AP Triton. So at this time, staff respectfully recommends that the City Council select AP Triton as the consulting firm for the fire department master plan and authorize city manager to proceed with contract negotiations in the amount of up to $45,000.
Thanks, Chief Page. Any comments or questions for the chief from the council? I think we had 2 very well qualified firms present proposals to the city, and I think it was clearly unanimous between Dana, myself, and Chief Page who the most qualified firm was that could provide the best services to the city for the most reasonable price. So I'm real happy with the firm that we arrived at. I'm sure you will be too. So I wanted to thank Chief Page for orchestrating the RFP or RFQ it was, I forget which, but I think we'll be very happy with the selection. With that said, we will need a motion to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to select AP Triton as the consulting firm to the fire department master plan and authorize the city manager to proceed with contract negotiations in an amount up to $45,000.
Thank you, Ryan. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Further discussion? Steve.
Just a quick question. $45,000, about 17% more than what's in the budget. I know that $5,000 in our overall budget isn't that much, but is that routinely the case that we're over that, we get these RFQs that come in 17% over?
So Steve, that was a number that was used about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And so we kept including that 40,000 in the budget. There wasn't much research into if that was the appropriate budget price. So unlike a construction project where you have that estimate, we just kind of went with what we had 3 years ago. 5,000 over 3 years, probably not too far off.
Thanks, Steve. Further questions or comments from the council? Michelle, roll call, please.
Counselor Quinnell,
Aye.
Counselor Sweeney,
In favor.
Counselor Davis,
In favor.
Counselor Hennon,
In favor.
Counselor Fury,
In favor.
Counselor Norton.
Aye.
Thank you.
And that's unanimous. Thanks, Chief. Good to see you.
Thank
there.
you.
And we'll move on to item 8, which is communications from Dana Smith, our city manager. You have Dana's report enclosed with the packet. Any questions for Dana from the council? Rebecca.
Yeah, I just was wondering, Dana, if you found out about HB 259.
Thanks for asking, Rebecca. I do have somewhat of a legislative update that I'd like to share with you all. House Bill 259, which is the inclusionary zoning bill, they have not taken action. I did watch the Senate Local Government Committee today. They did not take action on that, so I'll keep my eyes peeled. When it comes to the other bills that I've reported on here, some have hearings now scheduled, but I want to bring your attention to 2 bills. House Bill 137, which would revise the vaping and alternative nicotine product laws. That bill, I did submit comments on behalf of the city opposing that bill. We also had Mayor Mulfeld and other community partners speak at the hearing on Friday against House Bill 259. And then House Bill 257, which would eliminate the city's face covering ordinance, is moving a bit. It's been referred to the Senate Judiciary Committee today, but does not have a hearing scheduled yet. House Bill 436, which is not in my report and will be added in the future, is a new bill. Well, it's not really new. It's kind of gone under the radar, that would prohibit a local government from prohibiting the open carry and unpermitted concealed carrying of firearms within its facilities. House Bill 102, that is in law right now, prohibits us from prohibiting permitted concealed firearms. So this one really does cause me concern. I submitted comments on behalf of the city, as myself as the manager, because I do have concerns for employee safety and for our law enforcement facility and courtrooms that have not been exempted out of that bill. So we are watching that one. It did pass the House and it's at the Senate. Oh man, which one was it? I can't remember which committee. I'll have to look at it. But it's at a Senate committee and I did submit comments today. Wow, there's just too many committees to talk about. So that's kind of my legislative update. I do have one more update if there's no other questions from the council on the report.
Any other questions from the council?
No, thanks, Dana.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Dana. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just one more update, the snow lot. I've been meeting with the Housing Authority has created a committee of individuals to kind of manage the snow lot project. One of the concerns is the budget, obviously, with the rising house prices and the cost of construction. We're going to work through some of those numbers to see how that's impacted that project. But we anticipate a very, significant process from now till digging in the ground through their construction manager, who was awarded, and they are working on solidifying that contract with Montana Construction LLC out of Great Falls. Then they'll be looking at hiring an architect to help them through our whole planning process as we look at that lot and subdivision requirements and other zoning requirements. So with that, just so you know, I am attending those meetings each time they have one. More there for questions at this point, and just to provide some information from a city standpoint. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Dana.
Mr. Mayor, a question for Dana on this.
Go ahead.
I'm concerned, given what we've seen in terms of the cost of building materials that's occurred over the past year, that affordability is, even under the circumstances, is not going to be there. Do we have an opinion as to whether we should proceed to construction at this point, given the cost of materials? will we be able to make the numbers that we need to make in terms of affordability given those costs? Or has anybody analyzed that yet?
So Frank, I've done some preliminary estimates based on feedback from certain construction individuals. That said, we do have the cash available that the city's contributing to get them through what we hope the architecture, design, engineering phase. And then as we get closer, I think the decision will have to be made whether to proceed or not, or are there alternate funding sources that we could be looking at. Once they bring on the construction manager, they're going to do a more in-depth budget analysis with current costs, where what products are and all of that. Just finding an architect might even be a challenge. We're not quite sure.
Thank you.
I had a question for Dana, if I could. During the hearing on HB 259, Bozeman, I think, mentioned that they were waiving impact fees as part of their attempts at affordable housing, Dana. And I thought that was not allowed, and I was wondering if we could reach out to them and see how they did that, since we're not going to be getting a legislative solution for that this time.
So Rebecca, sorry. Okay, go ahead. They do not waive fees. They have funds available to reimburse fees. And I have confirmed that with them. They actually have 3 mills that they levy for affordable housing, and that's something I'll discuss with the city council with this next budget cycle, if that's something you'd like to consider to support impact fees.
Okay, thanks. I was hoping it would be good news, but I figured you would know about it already, but all right. I thought it might help with the snow lot. Thank you for clarifying that.
No, it's a great question. I was wondering that during the hearing as well, Dana, when I think it was the deputy mayor spoke on behalf of the city of Bozeman and mentioned that. So thanks for the clarification. Further questions for Dana, or Dana, anything else to report on? Not at this time. You have James Canova, letter enclosed in the packet under item 9A of the agenda. Any comments on James's letter or his comments this evening?
I have some questions when you have.
I'll acknowledge Ben first. Rebecca, I saw his hand first, and then we'll come to you.
Well, I was just going to say it seems pretty excessive to me. I was wondering if Craig or somebody could maybe remind us how exactly our policies work in terms of hiring somebody and how much we charge.
Can address that. So, yeah, in this situation, we have a pretty proactive snow removal policy where we go out and look for it on major, arterials and the sidewalks, the safe walks, the schools, routes, and then we also respond to complaints. And in this situation, we got a complaint directly to the city manager from an elderly resident that said it was an ongoing issue at that location over the last several years. We, our policy is to send out, go check it out, look at the site. We put a door hanger on there, and we also send a letter to the property owner. And in this situation, we gave them 10 days to respond. The code actually says 24 hours to respond. We could have also charged them with a municipal infraction, which is $300 a day. But in this situation, we gave them 10 days to respond. Went back in 10 days, and it hadn't been shoveled. So we got a hold of our contractor. They actually had to go to the site 3 straight days because the ice was compacted on the site. And so they had to put ice down to remove the ice on the property after they shoveled it. And on the 3rd day when they showed up, there'd been another snow event where 6 more inches fell. And so they had to shovel the whole thing again and then add more snow melt on there. So it was actually 3 days of ice and snow removal for that particular incident. It's pretty difficult to get guys that are very responsive. In the past, we've had snow contractors that took up to a week to respond. The guy we use right now is very responsive, usually comes within the same day or the next day. We put out an RFP to get those individuals. We could certainly, again, next fall, do another RFP and see if we can get people for cheaper. It is kind of difficult to find, that's kind of the gist of that. He did note that he might have gotten a phone call or an email. We really have no way to find that information out on people. We only have what's on the Montana cadastral, which is someone's property address. If someone gets in our record book, in our things, and we have another contact, we can obviously let them know if the issue comes up again. But we did receive multiple complaints from that property. We received more complaints after we shoveled it a couple of weeks later. So just kind of letting you guys know the gist of that. And yeah, $400 seems like a lot, but it was 3 different times they had to go back to the site.
Rebecca, you had your hand up? I think you're muted, Rebecca. Rebecca, I think you're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, thanks. I said I knew it was a law, but I've rarely seen it enforced anywhere in our city. So I'm just wondering, is it only for people that are kind of repeat offenders, or if there's like a complaint with someone that's concerned about their safety? How many times have we actually had to pay to have this done in the last winter, for instance? Because I know we have that policy downtown as well, and that goes on to the taxes. I'm just wondering how common it is.
It's pretty common. We have some people that just never shovel. So just this winter, we had to pay a contractor to go out 17 times for 8 properties this winter.
Okay. What was the average price then? So you're saying just that the weather made this an exceptionally expensive improvement to this property?
I think that snow had been there for a long time, and it's a very well-traveled route along Edgewood and Dakota, and so it had gotten packed down and snow and ice, and trying to just get the ice up, our code requires the ice to be removed and the sidewalk repair. So, it's not that easy necessarily to do that, as any of you know. When ice forms on there, it takes a while to chip that off and for the ice melt to work. But I don't know what the average price is. I didn't look and bill other people. This one may have been a little more expensive than normal, just because there was another snow between while they were working on it, so it snowed 6 more inches.
And Rebecca, just to clarify, for this situation, I received a complaint about, I want to say 5 or 6 properties along this route, and we followed up with every property. So this is not like a singled out property. The complaint followed multiple properties.
And there was one other one on that.
Were the other properties required to clear the snow?
Yes. And I think there was only a couple that didn't clear the snow, correct, Dave? I want to say.
Yep, there was one other one that our contractor had to go out and shovel as well.
And that bill was comparable to this gentleman's invoice?
Yeah, I believe so.
Well,
I agree with the policy. I'm not going to argue the policy, but at face value and for full disclosure, James reached out and sent me an email, and I brought that to the attention of Dave. But at face value, I thought a $480 bill for a one-time snow removal seemed very excessive. And now to hear that our code requires that the actual ice be removed from the sidewalk, I wasn't aware of that. And there's clearly times, at least where I live, which is just up the road from this residence, where you can't clear the ice. It's just impossible. So I think that's something we probably need to look at, because if that's what's driving the cost of this one bill in particular, I think it certainly raises a red flag to me.
Well, I've treated people that have broken wrists from falling on ice frequently, and so the ice is a big issue in this area. But I don't know. I don't know if we have the capacity to reduce the bill when we've already got a contract with someone to do that work. It would be a nice gesture on our part to do that, though. But I would be in favor of that if we could do that.
John, one particular property is a corner lot, so they have 2 lengths of sidewalks, which is one of the reasons why that was the bill was higher.
No, I understand that. And again, I just reading James's letter that's enclosed in the packet. I know unfortunately, he probably certainly, not unfortunately, but I'm sure he's not comfortable paying a $480 bill for snow removal, but I believe his biggest concern, that's certainly at the council's discretion, whether you reduce that one-time charge. But I think his letter speaks more to the policy and ensuring that, we're not out charging one-time offenders. And in this case, we're hearing two different stories that it's multiple offenses, if you want to call it an offense, $480 per pop, because I think that's a bit egregious in my opinion. So I don't know if there's aspects of the policy we need to look at, Dave, and bring back to council to, kind of close the gap on some of this, but just something worth, looking at. Steve, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wonder how much administrative time is taken up with this. I guess there was an $80 administrative fee.
Yep.
Is that if somebody's working on this for 4 hours?
Yeah. Well, it's 20% fee. It covers us, going out to the site, view it. We have to put the letter together, mail it, follow up on it, and work with the contractor on it, get a hold of them, follow up afterwards. So, that's in the code, is that 20% administrative fee. So that's our standard charge. It's the first time we've ever got a complaint about the charges that we have, since I've been here, but.
Have we in the past had a one-time fee of $480 to one property owner?
I'd have to go back to look at that. I'm not sure, John.
I think that would be important to look at. I know this contractor, he's a solid worker. I've hired him to shovel 4 feet of snow off my business property down on Wisconsin Avenue that took 3 people 8 hours solid time. And I don't think the bill was $480. So it just raised concerns to me.
I agree. $480 sounds like a lot, but hearing the more of the story, that there was a 10-day window in there where nothing was done. It's winter in Montana, and you got to clear those sidewalks. You got to get down to the bare concrete, otherwise it's still not safe. It's safer to walk on snow than it is on ice.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. It sounds like way too much money, but hearing the whole story makes me wonder, how much work the city did to try to make this not come to $180. And it seems like there might be a middling ground, or it might be, we tried and we didn't get the response we needed, and we didn't have the ability to get the response we needed because we don't have the information from the property owner to call him. Because I'm sure if we got on the phone with him, he would have said, "Hey, go shovel my sidewalk for me."
Yeah.
But we can't do that, and it seems like there could be a policy issue there.
Yeah, I see James, is your hand raised? I'll go ahead and acknowledge you. Do you have some comments?
Yeah, just a comment I want to make, because it was described, the issue of people calling in and complaining about the sidewalk. And I just wanted to identify the balance that can be had between hearing someone's report, it hasn't been a problem for years. There's another side to that, us being a homeowner who we would argue against that claim. And so I'm just trying to stick, and I tried to in my letter just stick to the nuts and bolts of it. And I think I did that. And so I'm just looking for a solution, like I said, to prevent this from going on again. And there's also discrepancy in the timing. I feel that's being presented for 10 days, but you can read into the letter and see that as well.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thanks, James.
I have one other comment, which is we do have a mechanism now for the citizens to be part of our emergency notification system. That was in one of our newsletters. Is that something that people could activate to sign up so that we would have their contact information in a situation like this? Dana, do you think that could work?
I don't know why I can't. My brain is drawing a blank on the emergency system sign up. Joe or Dial might be able to help me there.
Well, it was on the front, or it was in the newspaper, I think, or something, and it was.
Maybe the county?
Was it the county? I thought it was us, and I had never heard of it, so I clipped it out. But okay, so we don't have that mechanism in place. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so our website has like emergency notifications on our website, but that pushes out to the website and not an individual
Oh, I
directly,
see.
and that's maybe what we're thinking of. But
Yeah, that's probably what it was. All right, thank you.
I guess I also wouldn't characterize this situation as an emergency situation, just personally.
So I guess from a staff perspective, just so you're aware, we'll next fall make sure we go out for an RFP again, just to ensure that we are getting the most equitable rates for our residents. If it takes 3 times, that bill could be that high. I'm again not sure that we can get better rates. Being on call is a lot more expensive than having scheduled service. So we do know that. And then for the administrative fee, it's something we'll talk internally as staff just to see if a percentage is the appropriate way, or do we create an hourly rate like we do with some other programs? Because while you would assume that the bill's higher, the more frequently they're dealing with the property and the contractor, it might not always be the case. So I think we can look at how that administrative fee is also created.
Thanks, Dana.
Perhaps the administrative fee could have something to do with the number of violations.
We'll take a look at it and see what we can do and kind of come up with a plan, I think, before next fall.
Further comments on this from the council?
Would it be okay just as a gesture? Because he did bring this whole issue to us to maybe reduce the bill by $200. Does anybody else have a willingness to do that?
I don't like arbitrarily reducing something by a certain amount. I would say we could waive the administrative fee because that's the fee that the city is charging for this whole thing. But just arbitrarily $200, I wouldn't support that.
I would be cautious of what precedent you set as well in making this change when it's in our city code. So, just for anything that's dictated in city code, it could be applied in this situation. So while I understand this bill was outrageous, it sounds like maybe the intent is to make sure it doesn't happen again.
I think you're correct there, Dana. Not seeing further comments on this topic. James, thanks for joining us this evening and for your comments tonight. We'll move on to item 9B. Any comments on the current status of COVID-19? I think Dana certainly touched on that earlier, and it's included in her staff report, manager's report, excuse me. Okay, we do have one item to address, and that's related to our work session. We do need to provide staff direction this evening. I think, Steve, you indicated that you might have a motion prepared, or you've thought of a motion.
I wouldn't say it's fully fledged.
Okay.
I would move that we reduce the permit cost of the upper deck to $20 and include that in the parking pilot program.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I can second that. That'd be fine.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Steve, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that I think any discussion of employee parking downtown has to start with utilizing what's not being used in the parking garage.
I agree. Dana, do you have any comments or concerns with the motion?
I do, and the only reason I do is that I'm not sure how I can manage one parking permit program and another one utilizing the same spaces. So I'm brainstorming here. I really think that by reducing it to $20, it becomes affordable and that becomes permanent. This won't be pilot. This would be in perpetuity. And then you would have the other 3 lots be a different program at $20. Otherwise, I don't know how I block off spaces in the parking structure and the new permit program at the same time. It's going to be an administrative issue, I think, I guess we could potentially still oversell the parking structure, I guess would be what's the issue. Sorry, on the spot here, hang on.
So Dana, do you think I know the committee does not want zones, that this would require a zone. So we could lower the 3rd level and that be 1 parking lot that they can choose. We can lower that to 20, but then all the other 3 lots, they can have access to at full range. Does that work?
I think that's how I'm envisioning it would need to work. Otherwise, we just added 75 spaces to the permit program that we'll have for just July and August. And if we reduce rates in the parking structure, you will not be increasing them again come September. So that's just, a thought that's going to be a permanent, whereas this is a pilot program.
Andy.
Yeah, like I said earlier in my comments, I agreed with Dana on the problem with the $30 and the $20 and potentially having more people in the parking garage. But I got thinking about it a little bit during our break, and I guess I'd be comfortable with what the committee's recommendation is currently, and that's keeping all 4 lots available for the 85 spots. And here's my logic behind that. It's a pilot program and it's 2 months. So what it will ultimately let us do is it'll let us, one, see how elastic the demand is for parking in the parking structure. Because now if we think the $30 is too much, well, if that demand is fairly responsive to a reduction in price, we're going to see that. We're going to be able to track it. We're going to be able to follow those plates in and out. We'll know how many of those people use it, and that if we do drop it, we're going to get more demand, more utilization out of the structure. And the other thing, too, is the ability to put multiple plates on that permit for a specific spot in the parking structure. I think that does have some value, and I think that's probably worth another $10. As we heard, there's a number of businesses that will have 8 or 10 cars on there, and being able to rotate through a different set of employees as opposed to it being more specific to 1 car, which I'm understanding would be the case for the $20 in all 4 lots. And it's only 2 months. We'll kind of know at the end of that. I think rather than trying to reduce the $30 and mess with that and then kind of do a whole bunch of other stuff, we're doing a little test here, and yeah, it's 2 months and it might create a few headaches for us, but that end of that 2 months, we'll know. But I don't know. I think we take my preference. I'm going to vote against the motion. My preference would be to just take the recommendation from the parking committee and go for all 4 lots and 85 spaces and have the $20 permit. So that's my 2 cents worth anyway.
Councilor Davis, then I saw Dana's hand.
Yeah, I was just wondering if this pilot program moves beyond the pilot phase, can we incorporate the existing parking structure parking at that time, and it'll just all go together better?
I'll withdraw my motion. Thanks, Andy. If that's okay with Frank.
I can live with that.
Okay, motion is withdrawn. Ben? Did you have something further?
No, I just had a question. If we can just integrate the parking structure parking at a later time whenever this moves past the pilot phase.
Sorry, Ben, I didn't realize that was a question. I think that that's possible. One thing to consider is our city employees do use the uncovered portion. And so there would be no incentive for the city to keep paying $30 a month because we only put the employees' license plates on there. We don't try to balance that. So you'll see most of those probably drop to $20 a month if we were to move forward with $20 a month. My only question, I guess, for you guys is, If you do proceed with doing this in the pilot program, would I be blocking off the remaining available spaces, or are we going to try to double sell the 30 that's been included in the 80 and the 30 that's sitting open in the current structure available for lease? And so not knowing if they're going to park there or if they're going to park in other lots, that's where I'm struggling right now, is do I block off the 30 that are currently available?
I think that's why it's a pilot program. That, to me, like what Andy said, trying to figure out what kind of use we get. My suggestion, one of the things that came up was on Tuesday nights for market, is that maybe the caveat with the employee parking is that you cannot park in the garage on Tuesday nights. I don't know. Maybe that's too far, too much. I don't know.
I'll acknowledge Chris. I mean, I'd prefer after Chris's comments, Andy, if that is indeed going to be a motion, that we get that out on the table and see if we have a second, then we can move from there. Chris.
Great. Steve, I was just going to point out that the permits are only, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, the permits are only from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So the evening parking isn't affected by this. So it wouldn't really apply to the, except from like 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, it wouldn't really apply on Tuesday evenings because everything's pretty much open to everybody then anyway.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Andy?
Yeah, I would go ahead and move that we take the parking committee's recommendation and we run the pilot program for the months of June and July, correct? Or July and August? What are we? Which
July and August.
July and August. I lost my place there. July and August, we take their recommendation and we do 85 spots, and those will be $20 a piece and applicable or usable in all 4 of the aforementioned parking areas.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Beat me again.
I think I saw Steve with the second. And before I ask you to speak to your motion, Andy, Michelle, you have your hand raised.
So I just kind of want a little bit of clarification. The pilot program would be 1 license plate per vehicle, even though the parking structure does allow for up to like 10 license plates. It would just be too difficult and too complex for us to let people know that they can have up to 10 license plates per permit only for the parking structure. So I think we need to remember that. So I just wanted to clarify that you meant, yes, with 1 permit, 1 license plate per permit for the whole program.
Yeah, Michelle, that's the intent of my motion for sure. And that the $30 permit available for the parking structure does allow for up to 10 plates. And I think, like I said, I think that has some value, and I think that's worth the $10. So that's why I'm kind of semi-comfortable with it. So, and my hope is that we get enough data out of this that we know that, one, we either need to lower the rate or we can raise the rate or whatever we come up with. But I think that, after 2 months, we'll have a pretty good idea where we stand.
Thanks, Andy. Further comments on the motion? Michelle, roll call, please.
Aye.
Councillor Sweeney?
In favor.
Councillor Davis?
In favor.
Councillor Hennon?
Aye.
Councillor Fury?
In favor.
And Councillor Norton?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That motion does carry unanimously, and we'll move on to mayor and city council comments, and we'll start with Andy. Any comments tonight?
No comments. Apologize for not being here 2 weeks ago, and look forward to seeing everyone on April 5th.
Thanks, Andy. Councillor Davis.
No comments from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Councillor Sweeney.
My only comment is that I was one of the lucky ones to be included in 1B plus. I'm going to be able to get a vaccine. I encourage all citizens to get their vaccine as soon as they possibly can so we can move this thing back to a place where we can open up again. So let's get it done.
Thanks, Frank. Councillor Norton.
I just wanted to bring up Hannah Perno with Cedarhaven Apartments. She asked about an eviction moratorium because during the Wisconsin Avenue corridor study, those apartments had a 20-year commitment to stay affordable by their funding mechanism with the federal government, I think. And now they have met that requirement, and so now they're evicting people and going to market level pricing. So I don't think it's anything that the city can do to do an eviction moratorium at this point, but I wanted to make sure that I brought that up with Dana since I missed that discussion last time. And I have been talking to more people who are potentially losing their homes in Whitefish, and there's very little out there for them. So anyways, I just wanted to ask Dana about that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you can hear me. Sorry, the mute button. Rebecca, what's in place right now at the governor level is for, you cannot evict somebody for lack of payment. So this situation is a bit different. My understanding is the previous owner passed away, sold it, and now they're being moving to a market rate rent, which is allowed under the current moratorium in Montana.
The only other thing I'd like to remind people is we're all getting spring fever, but COVID is still here, and we have more variants now that are more contagious and also more serious with children. So please continue to mask and distance. I wanted to ask about our masking policy, Dana, and what people should do about that, because from what I've heard is Kalispell is almost completely unmasked. But we still have a mask ordinance in play here. And then could you just address that for the public, please?
Sure. Yep, the city still has our mask requirement in place to enter any spaces open to the public. And that requirement will remain in place. It was from 30 days since it became effective. Can't remember that date off the top of my head, but you know, these health measures are important until we get the majority of people vaccinated, and the CDC continues to recommend mask wearing, social distancing, and sanitization protocols.
Thanks, Dana. Anything further, Rebecca? Thanks. Councillor Hennon.
Nothing for me this evening.
Thanks, Ryan, and Councillor Quinnell.
Thanks, John. I just want to echo what Frank said. I was fortunate enough because I'm an educator, and under the federal pharmacy program, I was able to get my first vaccination. I'll get my second one April 5th. So it's big relief, and I just want to encourage everyone to, if you are eligible, to just get vaccinated. It's what we have to do. It's what we need to do for each other, and just do it and put the misinformation aside, please.
Thanks, Steve. And I don't have any comments. I just have a quick question for Craig. When is the Baker Avenue underpass going to be back under construction and wrapped up?
I anticipate that LHC will be back out there next month. We still have quite a bit of concrete work to do, and with the freezing temperatures overnight, we don't want to see them out there until we maintain 32 degrees. So it'll likely be early next month that they'll get going on that. It'll probably take them about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll have it open and ready to go for the summer.
Great. Thanks, Craig. I had a new observation coming off the mountain about a week and a half ago. I just wanted to give a shout out to the PD for responding so quickly. I've never seen this in town before, but the parking lot at The former McGarry's restaurant, Jalisco Cantina, was overflowing. And where do you think people were overflowing onto? The bike path. So it's the first time I've actually seen vehicles parking on the city's separated bike path system. And so I found that fairly comical, not really, but the police were on it quickly and got the vehicles removed. So that was a first for me, kind of a sign of the times. With that, anything further from staff, Dina?
No, not tonight.
I
Sorry.
think that was a no. Okay. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.